Welcome back to T-Step Go and Pick. It's been a while. I think the last time I did something was around the draft. Things went pretty quickly. School wrapped up for my son in the 5th grade. Then it was the summer of football training. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. My son is actually a pretty good football player. And this particular summer, he was doing a lot of camps. He also wrapped up 7-on-7s. And I coach, so it just took up a lot of time. But now that the Lions season, well, let's just say the whole football season is about to start. Preseason's over. College football starts this weekend. I'm gonna really pick up the videos to talk about a lot of things that's going on. It doesn't matter if it's Shedeur again. It doesn't matter if it's the Lions. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL in general. I'm definitely gonna have my 2 cents on what's happening right now in the NFL and my opinion on it. So the first video I'm going to talk about is the roster for the Lions and my take on it. I watched some of the preseason games. Honestly, after I watched the Hall of Fame game, I noticed something was different. They didn't really play a lot of their second stringers at all. They were really down to the bone, basically playing third and fourth stringers with a couple of second stringers kind of sprinkled in. But for the most part, it was third stringers. So I knew right away that this team was probably already picked. So what do I mean by that? Normally on most NFL teams, you will see a Tim Patrick play in the preseason. You'll see a Khalif Raymond play in the preseason, right? You didn't see any of that. So that means for the most part, they made the team. When I look at the final roster, a lot of the people who did play didn't even make it. And we even had some people that were pretty good that started the preseason that didn't make it. And it was confirmed, I want to say it was yesterday, when Dan Campbell basically said that the bottom of this roster is hard to fill it. Like, we are basically full and ain't no more room. We'll love to put you on the practice squad, but making this team with this amount of talent is going to be a challenge. I knew right away that a lot of people who were rooting for the Meeks of the world and some of these other people, they were probably never going to make it. But I just knew the football quality was pretty bad because of who we were playing. So I just didn't put that much stake into the preseason, to be honest. Normally I watched the first game, I watched the second game, and I watched most of the second game, and I was done. I pretty much kind of figured out that, a lot of these players, majority of them, 90% of them, you'll never see on the Lions, right? I think it was a couple people that made it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's jump into it. I actually pulled this up from Detroit Lions website. I thought it was a good choice to basically look at where we are as a roster, their final picks. I'm not going to go over their takes. You can do that on your own when you read it. But I'm going to give you my opinion on the final picks. Talk about a couple of, I want to say, controversial things that happened as far as cuts. And then we'll go from there. So, transitioning. All right. All right, so this is what I got here. Let's just skip all of this. You can read that on your own. The quarterback situation. Jared Goff, Kyle Allen. If you watched any of the preseason at all, you knew Hendon Hooker didn't really have a chance. But I'm going to tell you, I didn't think Hendon Hooker had a chance from the moment he was drafted. Not because of Hendon Hooker, because of some other things that I noticed about his style of play. Hendon Hooker is not a play action under the center quarterback. That's not what made him successful at Tennessee, really throughout his whole collegiate career. So I knew the chances of him making it were slim. The other factor was his age. I think he was 25 when he was drafted. Basically, that zebra stripes were already drawn and nothing was going to change. So he would need to fit in more a Raven-style offense, Eagle-style offense, maybe the Vikings, maybe the Bears. I doubt it because with Caleb Williams struggling a little bit in that offense, I don't think that's the right fit for him too. But basically, you know where I'm going with this. He needs an offense where he sits in shotgun, reads the offense, maybe gets some signal sent to him. He's a 1-2 read, run type guy. I think he can be successful. I think he can even do well. Pro Bowler? Probably not. But I think he can be a serviceable starter, on the right roster. Even the Bills, I think he'll be fine. But I don't think he was ever the right fit for us. I commend Brad Holmes for giving it a shot. But it was never going to happen. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. Jared Goff, Kyle Allen. I think we're good. They may pick up a guy, throw him on the practice squad. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But for the most part, this is what we're going to ride with for most of the year. Kind of the same situation here with running back. I know a lot of people were rooting for Jacob Sailors. Running backs come a dime a dozen, and we were stacked in that particular department. You know, we had Jahmyr Gibbs, we got David Montgomery, we drafted Vaki. Craig Reynolds is Mr. Reliable. Netflix is not going anywhere. We're not going to keep 5 running backs on our active roster. So this is pretty much a done deal. I know people were like, oh, Vaki was injured, but Vaki was valuable to us because he can do so much. Let's not forget, I think we are all victims of recent bias. We're like, oh my God, look at what's happening now. Vaki plays very well on special teams. He brings a lot of value as far as what he can do, his versatility. I don't think you will ever see it, but don't forget when he was in college, he also played defense. He played both ways, right? So you don't get those type of players. They're a dime a dozen. So even though Jacob Sailors may have played better, I think it's because he had more reps in the preseason. The one thing you have to realize about this entire roster, we didn't see hardly any of it at practice, in the rooms, as far as when they were studying with the running backs. How did they do? It's a collective reviewing process. It's not just what we see on TV. So with that being said, this is pretty much said and done. I wasn't expecting any changes here. Moving on to the wide receivers, and I think this is where we got a little bit of controversy. People love Meeks. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I really feel like this was a hard, very hard position to fill. First couple of positions, like I talked about, were locked down before the preseason started. Amon-Ra, Jamison, Khalif, Tim Patrick, they were pretty much locked in. Isaac TeSlaa was locked in. Even if he didn't have the preseason that he did have, he was still on the team. It came down to Dominic Lovett. Dominic Lovett has something a lot of the other guys who didn't make the team don't have, because he has speed. And that's something that we look for that on our offense. We like a lot of speed, right? Dominic Lovett is one of the faster guys when it comes to wide receivers. With that being said, I do think Jackson Meeks has room to make it on this roster. Probably start off on maybe practice squad. You also have to remember Tim Patrick has gotten hurt a lot. So if he gets hurt, then you can call up a Jackson Meeks if he makes it to our practice squad. So I think there's a possibility he sticks. But developing, he wouldn't get any playing time. I don't think he was that great of a special teamer. It wasn't that much room for him right now. So all of this makes sense. I think Dominic Lovett is a better special teamer as well. I think he's a gunner and he's a return guy. Look, that's what you want from your 5th and 6th guy. Isaac TeSlaa. Now I'm going to do a whole entire video on him. I actually paused. I was going to do a video right after we drafted him. But I said I'm going to wait. I'm not going to have this uproar because there's not that much film on this guy. A lot of the film is basically YouTube clips. And if you're scouting, and anybody will tell you that's the worst thing to look at to determine whether a player is good or not. And I don't have access to all 22 film for Arkansas and this team he came from. So with that being said, I was going to do a wait and see type of approach to Isaac TeSlaa. I'll say it quickly. I did like what I saw from him before he started this preseason. Even before training camp, I understood what Brad Holmes was doing. I think he was hurting for passing on Puka Nacua, and he saw some of that in Isaac TeSlaa, and that's why he took such a big flyer on him. Now, we'll see what happens. Again, we are very deep. Does he crack? Does he get on the field when you have Khalif and you have Tim Patrick? I would say probably not right away, but we'll see. I think he's played well enough to get some reps, but I don't think he's going to be a starter. But again, we'll wait and see, and I'll have his entire video on him and what I like. I'm also probably going to temper some expectations in that video as well. Tight end. Again, this was pretty much a straight shot. Didn't see any Brock Wright. You saw Shane Zylstra battling for that final spot. I think the only person that was really giving him a run was Kenny Yeboah. Probably saying that wrong. But once he got hurt, that was pretty much it. Kenny was doing well from what a lot of the reports were saying as far as a third-string tight end. But I didn't expect that much of a change as far as the tight end roster. Pretty much This is going to be what we brought in the last season. Shane is very dependable. I thought he did a pretty good job at the end of the season playing that dual role of tight end and fullback. I think we need that. So again, who would possibly replace that? I don't think there was anybody that really challenged him to take that third spot. Maybe Kenny at one point, but even when it's said and done, I think Shane had it locked up. All right, moving on to the offensive line. Now, it was some controversy here. We'll talk about it, but I think a lot of these people were also sewed up. I think preseason really helped this group of individuals. Out of the entire roster, I think the most competition came with the offensive line. I think all of us were taken back when Frank Ragnow retired. And I would personally say that was my fault, because really for the last 2 years, he was talking about retiring. Why I thought he would come back for another year? Being a Lion homer. That's why. But realistically, it made sense for him not to come back because he was really playing on one foot. Love Frank Ragnow. If he had more of a healthy career, this guy could have been a Hall of Famer. He was that good. But injuries are tough, especially at the center position, especially on the offensive line. But I wish him all the best in his retirement. But with that being said, I think this line was pretty much solidified except for the back end. So we know who our starters are. But then we talk about Awosika, probably saying that wrong. Manu, which we did see some growth from Manu. I was hoping we would see a leap for him. When Skipper got hurt, we saw Giovanni step into that spot. I think the other pieces around him were not that great, so he struggled a bit at times, but I think you did see him grow, and that's ultimately what you want to see from a guy who is playing Canadian football, right? And doesn't have that much experience. He did have the right amount of growth. Will he be a left tackle? I don't know. In a perfect world, I would love for him to follow the same path as a left tackle for the Eagles, but that's in a perfect world. We might end up in a situation where Giovanni Manu goes to the right side and Penei Sewell goes to the left. In the future, if something happens to Taylor Decker, that could happen. But I do think Manu still has a lot of room to grow. I think it's still going to take him another year. So I wouldn't expect as much from him. It would be great if he does take on that swing tackle role. With all that being said and done, there is a rumor Dan Skipper is coming back. Dan Skipper's been with us for a very long time. He's been cut and basically kind of given a under the table agreement that we're going to bring you back after week 1. And I think that's going to be the same case for Dan Skipper now. I think the only reason he was cut because he was battling an injury. But I do think Dan Skipper is going to be back on with this organization because he's very valuable as a swing tackle and as an extra tackle for the Lions. Jamarco Jones was a late pickup. I think he has some starting experience. Good to see him make the roster. I like the fact that we got a guy that started before with our reserves rather than just some guys we're developing. I think you ultimately want that on a team this stacked. You want somebody with some starting experience. So I was glad to see him make the roster. Kingsley, I thought that it was great to see him make the roster as well. It's a big gap at center, right? I'm not as concerned about others with Graham Glasgow. My concern with him is probably more or less his age rather than his ability, but he's a very smart guy. He's been playing center for years, even from his Michigan days. But we really know he's getting to the end of his career, right? Probably need to find another center when it's all said and done. And maybe it's Kingsley. I don't know. Kingsley played well for the most part in the preseason. Again, not spectacular, but I think if we need him to come in and start, we should be okay. And ultimately, that's what you want. Other than that, Miles Frazier's coming back. He probably is going to be a swing guy. He didn't get no training camp. He didn't do anything. So he has to get his conditioning up before he can even help us. But again, he was a guy that I was very happy about when we drafted him. And I do think he'll contribute, but it'll probably be more in 2026 with him seeing some spot duty in 2025. All right, the defensive line. Definitely saw some surprises with this group. Aiden Hutchinson, definitely. Marcus Davenport, definitely, right? And then the only other person that stayed at edge was Muhammad. That was a shocker. I wasn't expecting that. I thought we would stack up more at edge and maybe not so much at tackle. Now, with that being said, we do have some swing guys. Your Pat O'Connors, Mekhi Wingo. They are swing ends if you need them. Josh Pascal is coming back, whatever he can bring. Josh Pascal is a guy that has great heart, great motor, but just doesn't have the ability to be a consistent threat as far as being an edge. He'll be back though, right? I think have a great body. When it's all said and done, I'm kind of with everyone else. I do think they're leaving a spot open for Zadarius Smith, but I do think we've entered a point where Zadarius Smith's stock has basically gone sky high because he's waited so long. Edge rushers are a premium. If you're a NFL team, do you want a Zadarius or Jadeveon Clowney? You want Zadarius. He's going to bring you constant pressure. Jadeveon is really good, don't get me wrong, but his motor isn't always there. He's at this point, he's motivated by money, and I don't not both of them are, but I think the results are different with Zadarius. Zadarius is still going to give you a tremendous amount of effort on every play, and he's also going to get to the quarterback a lot more. I don't know if you're going to get that from Jadeveon Clowney, even though he was the Panthers' top rusher last year. But I would rather have Zadarius. We'll see what happens. But I am expecting in the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll hear more about that at the latest after week 1, which is a little scary because I would rather he gets 2 weeks of practice and can contribute as an edge rusher than we wait for after the first week to bring him on, because I know it does something to the roster when we do stuff like that, like the contract isn't guaranteed, something like that. I don't know. But I'm hoping that's not the case. I think we're too good to be playing these money games. And I know we're getting tight on a cap, but I think we need to bring him in. Some people were really disappointed with Nate Lynn. Nate Lynn was a flash in the pans. I think he does have ability. I think he's a guy that will come back on our practice squad. I wasn't that shocked. I think the biggest shock of them all was Keith Cooper, because he can contribute at so many different levels. I thought he brought a lot in defensive tackle as well as end. I think he could ultimately be a better player than Josh Pascal, but he didn't make it. Now, he was a tryout guy. He has a big shot to make it to our practice squad, but I was kind of expecting him to make it. Looks like he lost out to Chris Smith. Chris Smith is another big body guy, 3-tech guy. So we'll see, Again, it's not just what we see in the preseason. It's also what's happening when they're in the room. It's also what's going on the practice field. It's a lot of different other factors that go into it. For all we know, Keith Cooper may have had a late problem. I don't know. He may have ate too much. It could be anything, right? But I don't want us to basically get hung up on what we saw in the preseason, because that's just a part of the evaluation when it comes to the Lions. All right. With that being said, I think this can be a very impressive group. Ultimately, the Lions, and I'm not giving my predictions right now. Are we going to go 15-2? That's going to be hard. But the main thing for us is, yes, we want to lock down a top seed, but a healthy Lions team going to the playoffs is what the NFL doesn't want. Nobody in NFC wants to see us pretty healthy going into the playoffs, because it's going to be a problem. They know it, right? It's not going to be, I doubt very seriously you're going to get bad Jared Goff anymore. Because I think he pressed with the Redskins because of our defense being so bad. If we got a healthy defense, you're going to get a different guy, right? You're not going to see as much pressing from Jared Goff and others to win games. I even think Ben Johnson was pressing a bit as well because of the injuries on defense. I don't think you're going to get that with a pretty healthy defense, man. I think you're going to have a pretty dangerous team that you don't want to play at any level when it comes to the playoffs, because we got some guys that's pretty hungry right now. So with that being said, this group is pretty much wrapped up. I was hoping to see Cooper make it. I'll just say that one more time. But again, I think he's a guy that goes to our practice squad if he makes it through waivers. Linebackers, again, I didn't think there was any change with this. This group was pretty much written in stone, man. I mean, we got basically 3 starters in Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, and Derek Barnes. They're not going anywhere. Grant Stewart was just, I think he had an amazing preseason. Very athletic guy. He can also just bring it as far as intensity. With that being said, he was a shoo-in. Special teamer, Zach Cunningham, another guy with starting experience. I personally have always liked Zach Cunningham. He's lost a step, but when he was with the Texans, people don't realize that he was one of the top middle linebackers in the NFL at one point. So having a guy like that as your 4th or 5th guy, I'll take it any day. You don't normally have talent like that on the back end. Trevor Nowatzki is another versatile linebacker. He plays some middle linebacker this preseason, but he's an outside guy that can rush at times, very athletic as well. That group is wrapped up, and we still have Malcolm Rodriguez coming back. But again, I think we're in a pretty good place until he's healthy and ready to go towards the middle of the season. Now, going on to the defensive backs. I'm again no shock here. I think people wanted to see maybe Eric make it or Ian make it, Lawrence Strickland make it. This was a hard group, man. I personally didn't see that much change here either. I think maybe what happens if Ennis Rickstraw doesn't get hurt. I don't know. You're probably keeping 9 defensive backs, or maybe Khalil Dorsey doesn't make it. But Khalil Dorsey has a lot of chops when he's healthy. Special teamer, great gunner, and a decent reserve cornerback in a pinch, and he's helped us out. So I don't know what you do in that scenario, but we don't have to worry about that because Enos is hurt for the entire season. But again, this was another group that was pretty much wrapped up, right? I don't see that much change. It is unusual that we're basically rolling into the season with 3 safeties, especially as heavy as we use Kirby and Brian Branch. I would love for another safety to be brought in to help. And I know Avante Maddox, shout out to all the Maddoxes, and Rock Ya-Sin can do a safety, can play safety in a pinch. But I think you want a truly a safety guy back there. Even though you have your tweeners, I think you want a guy that solidifies that safety position. So with that being said, we only have 50 people on the roster right now. I do think one of those is going to be a safety. Wrapping up with special teams, nothing to talk about here. Jake and Jack and Hogan. That was the group, no change. So my final thoughts on the roster. So I firmly believe that this is a pretty good roster. I think I agree with Dan Campbell that we are stacked. I think our edge problems can be answered with Za'Darius Smith. I think ultimately what they may look at is, do we bring in a Za'Darius and a young guy? People are talking about a trade. I know some people were throwing Kayvon out there. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, but Kayvon, I don't know if he's the right fit for us. I think athletically, he's pretty good. I think he is kind of a bigger version of what we get from Derek Barnes. But I don't know if anything. That's all speculation, right? So I think it's all Za'Darius or bust. I would love to bring 2 more guys in, maybe another tweener that can do that tackle in position. You remember we still have call-ups too, so you might see Keith Cooper get called up for a game, right? Nate Lynn, I know people liked him. I wasn't as big on him. I thought he had some moments where he was kind of boneheaded. I know he did. He was our main, when it came to edges, he brought the most pressure, I think, out of all of our edges that played in the preseason, but doesn't really mean that much to me. You're playing against people who are UFL talent. No knock to that, but you know, it's an okay evaluation, but it's not the complete evaluation. It probably wasn't that many moments where Nate Lynn was lining up across the field from Aiden Hutchinson. Doubt it very seriously, right? It probably wasn't happening that much. So I think this roster's in pretty good shape. You know, hopefully we don't have the nightmare, and I doubt it. You normally don't see 2 seasons of nightmares of injuries like we did, like normally in the NFL. But we went 15-2 with that half a roster. So I think we'll be pretty successful this year. I think we're going to surprise some teams. I think what's happening is people don't realize that the Lions are elite. I know we're losing coordinators. I know we've lost coordinators, excuse me. I know that's going to be somewhat problematic. There's going to be some growing pains. I don't know if our offensive coordinator, Johnny Morton, is going to be as sophisticated as Ben Johnson. But honestly, I think he's going to bring a level of groundedness that we need for a playoff run. Because look, man, the Eagles weren't fancy. They weren't fancy. They just ran the ball. Jalen wasn't a 3,000-yard passer. They didn't have multiple 1,000-yard wide receivers. They ran the ball and played defense. That's how you win Super Bowls. Every time Patrick Mahomes has lost, it's because he couldn't handle the pass rush. They couldn't establish a good defense. It's all of that. Having a tremendous offense, having a decent defense is okay for the regular season, but to win playoff games, you got to be able to run the ball, and you got to have decent to great quarterback play, and you got to play defense. So I think that's where we're headed. I think we're be in a pretty good spot, and I think we'll be very successful. We're gonna surprise some teams that we're supposed to lose to. I would love to see us beat the Ravens. I think that'll shut a lot of people up because the Ravens is a hard team for us to win against. But I think we want our leg back because of how bad they beat us a couple years ago. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll be talking more about Isaac. I do maybe do a short video on my views on what I saw from Johnny Morton because I like what I saw in the preseason. I know it was just a shell of his offense. And then we'll kind of do a preview of what I'm expecting this season. All right, with that being said, this is T-Step Go and Pick. Like and subscribe. And I'll see y'all on the flip side.